And she calls that one Sheurere. And that's how I welcome you this morning on Week Time with Ekene Ezebue. How you doing this lovely Saturday morning? Alright, that's a very lovely song from Christy Essien Ibokwe Sheurere. It's all about a song that they're talking about, that talks about how we can pray for our kids, songs that can direct our children towards becoming the best version of themselves, okay? Today, and in today's world, we are having a very, I don't know how to put it, it's a very bad experience that we're actually having in what we see that some of these children, Nigerian kids, displaying on the internet and all that. So, and it's actually very, very painful. It's that, knowing fully well that the generation past, they did not actually do it this way. But this generation is something else. It's something else entirely. And we want to talk about this. We have a very wonderful personality that will be talking about the decay of the Nigerian child in recent times. We'll have a psychologist from the University of Nigeria and Soka, Dr. Law Mefo. He's here this morning. Doctor, how you doing this morning?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, Nigerians.
How you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm good. Okay.
Yeah. In recent times, it's been so many. We've seen lots of videos, viral videos, making rounds on the internet. Some of them are so bad to even behold. So we want to know how. Saw the one that was having sex with a dog. So the ones, underage, having sex and all that on the internet. I don't even know how they come about, having to record themselves with a camera while doing all those stuff. How did we get to this point?
Yeah, well, it's sad, like you have rightly observed. And trying to dissect and to understand how we got here will take us back to some fundamentals that we find in child upbringing, child rearing practices, how it used to be and what it is now. In the past, many of the things that obtain now, weren't there. Take, for instance, the social media. The social media, the e-media, the internet, they have all altered the world. The advent of the social media particularly the the internet component of it, because that is what drives it. It has made the world into a global village. It now means that you can access any part of the world from anywhere you are. One major communication expert called Marshall McLuhan one time said that the world is not a global village. Yeah, but the world has shrunken even further. The world is, smaller than the global village now, because you can have the whole world on your palm top, with a very little smart China phone. You can access anywhere in the world, for the good, the bad, the ugly. By that I mean, to censor the content of social media is very difficult. Some countries have tried to do that. Nigeria hasn't. What that means is that our children are living in an uncensored environment. This has placed extra burden on the parents. And parents themselves, especially the older generation, those who are in their 50s and beyond today, are not, they are not of the digital age. They are only playing a catch-up. What that means is that their children are ahead of them when it comes to what you may consider the information age. It has become a vortex that has sucked in all the younger ones, the youths down to the children. They are all in that world now. And their parents can only have a peep in. The picture I'm trying to paint is that, a child is born with only potentials, turning those potentials into kinetics, energy, will have to be done by training, education, child upbringing, modeling, and so on and so forth. All this have been confronted by the menace that we call the social media, because the social media, uncensored, can become a very dangerous tool in the hands of the children. You know why? Because the kids themselves are impressionistic and exploratory. They want to see the world. They want to try things out. And these things are all out there, ranging from pornography to all manner of things. So a parent of an analog age, I mentioned those, in the segment of 50 and upwards, they are within a bracket where they can only play catch up because they weren't born into the digital era. Even those in their 40s, cannot effectively say that they are fully at home, with what is happening in the social media. My phone, my 7-year-old son knows how to use this phone better than myself. There are features of this phone that I don't know, but he tells me, he teaches me. I don't know where he got those stuff from. This will show you that they belong to a different era. Now, if my little boy of 7 years knows how to download, the games he plays, he does it, download it by himself. He knows the size and stuff and plays the games if he has access to my phone. You now see that they are exposed to new capacities, new abilities that require delicate balancing for them to be able to benefit from them. So even I'll tell you the 3 forms of parenting, and why they are having problem in the present era and why we are losing it.
Okay, okay, Doc. Before we go further, I want to touch this particular area that you just mentioned. You talked about the world being a global village. You talk about the advent of the internet, the social media, and all that. And then I want to ask: in the past, there have always been camera from time immemorial, and then here we are. Having social media at our disposal, does it mean that those are our time? Those time that those video cameras were there, that the people of the past cannot take advantage of it. Maybe just do, because it's one thing to have a social media, it's one thing to have a camera and record yourself.
Yeah, then you see, I recall the pictures we took then. You know, even somebody taking the shot wants to be part of the shot, he will set the camera, then rush back, to sticking his head and all that. You see, all that, all that have changed. You really don't need to go through those rudimentary, how do I put it now? I remember when we were in school, secondary school, we were taught that things like pinhole camera, and you see, things have changed. The cameras you have today are digital cameras, and they can perform a lot of functions, and they record, both audio and video, and they are supersonic. The output and the outcomes, really super. So you can understand why selfies, you hardly need any photo studio now. Yeah, because cameras, once you have a good phone, you should be able to do those things self.
Is that psychological confidence, as in that I really want to bring out? What will make somebody to record himself or herself having sex?
Because it has become a fad. And you see, you talked about moral decay. And if moral rectitude is not part of growing up, what we play up and out ultimately is the hedonistic, aspect of man. You see, we are all born, pleasure seeking, all of us. From psychoanalytic, psychology perspective, we are all born id. Id is based or propelled by what you call pleasure principle. Man by nature is a joy seeker. He wants fun. But you need to, that is where child upbringing, comes in. You need to really teach the growing individual, the what you may call the drawing lines, the do's and don'ts, things that have to do with gratification, and more especially, when I say do's and don'ts, it's very fundamental, and that is where moral rectitude is embedded. You will see that the line between do's and don'ts, good and evil, that line is being obliterated. So what we used to see as evil in those days is no longer seen as such in contemporary times, because we are not teaching enough. Do you understand that? And we are not modeling enough. Parents have become more and more incompetent in modeling for their children. More often than not, they are not even around, and themselves are also lost in the shuffles of today's world. What the picture I'm trying to paint is very fundamental, because what you don't give what you don't have. The children have to be taught. They must be taught. Now, you take it from the family to church to school. What do you find in those places? In the family, where the first window to the world is opened to the child, our parents actually carrying out the fundamental, rules of engagement in parenting. Are our parents still in a position to really, do what they ought to do? A lot of parents are struggling in this direction. And as you are doing that, the social media is intervening, is interrupting your actions and your processes and modifying them. And as long as you are not, making an effort in that direction to know what your children are doing when they are alone, what do they watch, who are their friends, and things like that, they are learning new things. So even where you are teaching that this is evil, it's being counteracted. And this is not the balance, because it is not enough to just say, do not. you need to teach, go beyond saying don't do this. You need to provide reasons, and you need to model those reasons yourself also.
Okay.
Otherwise, the child, when he finds a contradictory information, from any source, from friends, from school, from church, from the social media, he begins to whittle down that little which you have been able to inculcate or try to inculcate in the family level. Now, if you come to the schools also, our schools are in total dilapidation and decay. Public schools are simply no longer there. Primary, secondary, completely gone. So the teachers you find in the primary schools are not even available to teach. They are not even there. So you discover that because where the family stops is where the school takes over from, and where the family got it wrong, the school should be able to correct. Your child will tell, oh, this is our teacher said this. Even sometimes what the teacher tells the child appears more important to the child than what the parents say. So you see that the family and the school must work hand in hand, but they must be adequately prepared to do that. The schools are not.
Okay, Doc.
Yes.
There's something I really want to. You talked about modeling, being a model for your children.
Yes.
Trying to live a life that they can be able to observe and see how you go about your daily life.
Very fundamental.
Yeah, and then I now looked at that one that slept, that was having sex with a dog. Those parents had sex with dog.
They didn't. She certainly picked it up from somewhere else. And then, of course, the signature, patterning from the parents is also there. Because before a girl will degenerate to that level, certainly, I can tell you for free that the parents, have actually neglected their fundamental responsibility. Things don't just happen. They grow over time. Behavior takes time to really, grow in individuals. As a social psychologist, we know that behavior is hardly spontaneous. It is something that is motivated. It's coming from a background. In other words, the decadence wasn't checked in the family, right? Because even if the girl picked that up from her peers in school, right? She returns home, right? And it will show one way or another before it got crystallized to that extent that she could, have sex with a dog, record it, and be proud about that. Was she really thinking about family? She wasn't. She certainly comes from a family that is totally decayed. That is why herself is a sample of what the family has been able to produce. A child sees the parents, particularly the father, as the first hero. Do you understand that? That's why a child, you beat the child out there, say, I'll tell my father for you. The last line of defense is looking at the father as super next to God. That's the God the boy or the girl sees. And it's very fundamental. The father figure in the family, then the position of the mother, the nurturant, trying to make sure that there is food on the table. When the father runs around, provides, the wife is able to cook and present, and there is happiness in the home. In other words, if you allow your home to become a bedlam, there's no way it can produce proper children. That's why I talked about some models of a child upbringing. You need to have a family that is authoritative. What I mean by authoritative is a family that makes laws and enforces those laws, free and fair. And even the children are part of setting those rules. For example, there must be dinner before 7. It's a rule. So if you want to be part of family dinner, you have to be home before 7. Once dinner is done, no more food for you. That's a rule. And the family enforces it. It brings about discipline. A child knows that there is discipline. There are things that if you do, they have consequences. But you have confused parents who, bring on what you may call double-blind communication. their children don't even know what is right and wrong anymore. Because you see the parents punishing this offense, on one hand and at this time, and on the other hand, and at another time, they are actually rewarding the same offense. So it brings about confusion. For example, a child insults the senior sister in the house. The mother spanks the child. The same child insults a neighbor that you are not in good terms with. You say nothing. You have actually rewarded it. Do you see where the problem is? These little things matter. So if you understand, how the girl degenerated, you can see it's coming from the family. The influence of the peers is actually secondary, because there is this white man saying, says, show me your friends, I'll tell you who you are. It is who you are that decides the kind of friends you will keep. Even when you enter the university, when you are free and stuff, the students that tend towards courtesan and things like that, they carry that background from the family. It doesn't necessarily mean that the parents are courteous. No. It's because the insecurity that drove them into courtesan in school is actually founded in the family. That is the number one factor that moves a child to seek security in school. If you are confident enough, you feel secure even in yourself. You don't need any external force to protect you being a student in the school. So you say that if you are able to raise confident children, confident, it has nothing to do with money. There are very poor parents that have raised very excellent children. I tell you, I know of illiterate parents that have produced medical doctors, engineers, psychologists. They have produced all professionals, and yet they are illiterate. They are poor. They manage to raise these children. So it has nothing to do. In fact, even wealth can be a problem. Wealth, if not applied properly to child upbringing, can become a problem. If, for example, you overprotect your child, overprovide. For example, your child is returning to school, and you think that the best way to show love is to give you 1 million naira as pocket money. You're actually destroying the child. The child doesn't need that kind of money. A proper parent will sit the child down and do a budget. You do a budget. How much do you really need? How much? We calculate it day by day. You need 3 square meal. How much is a meal? Do you understand that? You get to know how much a meal, then you multiply across board. And you don't even release the whole money. Because if you release the whole money, the girl or the boy may just squander it. Do you understand that? So you need to really keep a close tab. If the child needs, for example, 100 to 150,000 naira in a semester, and you're giving $1 million, do you know what that means? That money will become a distraction to the child. You see students who are vulnerable, little, maybe bloated because of excess food in the family. They return, to campus with cars. Do you understand that? What is parents should ask, a parent should ask this question of what value is that car to the child as a student on campus? It becomes a distraction. You don't need you don't need the car to drive to class. You should be able to allow the university system to go through you. That means you mix up with your fellow students. You ride in the school busing system. You mix up. You build fresh social networks. You learn, even if you're coming from an extremely aristocratic home, you should be able to learn the way of the people, socialize, get to know what other people are going through. That way you become a better human being. Life, you see, is not a bed of roses. You may be a billionaire today, but there's no guarantee that you will not become a pauper tomorrow.
That you remain a billionaire.
You can't remain a billionaire. It's a bumpy ride. Life is a bumpy ride. I have seen former this, former that, who were billionaires yesterday, who are you know, going down to the level of begging for 100,000 naira to here in Abuja.
It's
Do you
possible.
understand?
It's possible.
Not I said I have seen. I know. Do you get the point? What I'm saying is that you need to, when you are up there, you have in mind that you could go down there. So you prepare yourself psychologically for anything that comes, so that you are in a position to survive. Your children must be taught exactly the same thing.
Okay.
So when you overprotect, you overprovide, you are actually shielding your children from things they must learn to be able to survive without you.
Okay. All right. I'm speaking with Dr. Law for a social psychologist and a PhD in psychology. Social psychology. And don't forget that you can be part of this conversation by calling us on our line 081 822 22205. I'll go on a short musical break. When I return, we'll still be talking with Dr. Lawme for a social psychologist. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Very lovely song from Whitney Houston. She called that one "Greatest Love of All," talking about how to better, how to love our kids and how to raise our kids and how to make them to be the best that the future will be proud of. Okay, all right. We're still discussing with Dr. Lawman for a social psychologist. We have been talking about how the decay, how we came to this point of this high decay in a Nigerian child. Mm, Social media is still not helping matters, or will I say they are not really being mindful of social media? Because social media is there for you to make a whole lot of positive use of, but the other way around is what we are seeing. Well, I'm not saying that we are turning blind eye to the ones that are using it positively, okay? But we just want to see how we can be able to arrest this decay and see how we can be able to, position the minds of the kids towards positive things. All right. Don't forget that we're still talking with Dr. Lawman for a social psychologist. Doc, before we went on that musical short break, we wanted to ask you about. You talked about family laws. And we want to know how this family laws, because sometimes when you talk about family laws and how to enforce it, then you start thinking of child abuse. How can we do it to avoid child abuse?
Yeah, well, you see, I talked about the children themselves being part of setting those rules. You set the rules with the kids. You need to reason with them. Even God said, "Man, come, let us reason together."
Together.
So why shouldn't parents reason with their children? Don't think they are too young to reason. It's not true. A child from age 5 and above can, you'll be surprised what they can come up with, right? They may not be analytical, but they have begun to, form the impressions of certain things. And the idea is to build the moral foundation so that they will be able to know what is right and what is wrong, and why what is wrong is wrong. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
When you say that telling lies is wrong and it's evil, and you go to tell the child that it's because the Bible says so, the Quran says so. That is not a good answer. You're not reasoning with the child. You need to get the child to understand that a lie alters the true position of things, and decisions can be taken based on those lies that can cause catastrophe. They need to understand the dangers that lies pose. It's different from saying that, you see, the Bible says so. It is, look, bring these things to realities so that the children can connect and make sense out of those. You understand that?
Okay.
Morality is not a biblical or Quranic injunction. No. They are found there, yes. It's a way of life. Right and wrong. It's not just, even if there is no God, but God forbid, morality is still inevitable. You can't live without morality. You know why? It's moral foundation. It's on moral foundation that you found integrity. It is on integrity you build common good. Do you understand that? You build common good. So you begin to train a child to understand the value of hard work. You don't need to bend the rules. You don't need to lie to get your way, because from those little lies you tell in the family, the child begins to cheat in school to pass. The child needs to know that it's not the certificate that is the issue. That you need to be able, that the certificate is just attestation that you are qualified at this level. If you lied your way up to that level, how will you be able to live out the responsibility attached to that certificate you're carrying? That is what we have today. So you have graduates who cannot write a letter. That's the truth. That's where we are. Because the system is, constitutes a lie in itself. Lecturers, take money to award marks. lecturers sleep with girls that word marks. So you produce a 2-1, sometimes even first class students that are not even qualified to carry a level pass certificate of university. That's where we are now. And that is why the integrity of the Nigerian certificate today is in doubt. If you go outside the country, go to a place like UK, US, your certificate, nobody will trust it. They will keep it aside and subject you to true fresh rigor. If you a Nigerian nurse, a Nigerian medical doctor, you can't practice outside Nigeria. You have to pass their own exam because they don't trust where we are coming from. But you know what? Even up to this 80s of yesterday, when some of us were already in secondary school, in the 80s, Nigerian educational system was still very strong, to the point that our secondary school products were qualified for Ivy League universities in the US, in the United States of America. Ivy League. When you talk about Ivy League universities, you're talking about their first level, Harvard, Princeton, University of California. These are Ivy League universities, and only the best go there. Those were the universities that were fit enough for Nigerian secondary school products. And today, they can't even get into those schools without going through extra rigor and so on and so forth. This will show you that things, have really rotted to the point that I brought in this issue of integrity for you to see, the foundation of it in the family. When you get the child to sleep, look, when my son tells me the truth, I don't punish him. I'll just tell him, the consequence of his action. I don't punish. When he tells me, I want to reinforce that telling me the truth. But when he tells me a lie, I deal with him. You see what I'm trying to balance out there? It doesn't matter what he did.
Integrity.
Yes, I will. I can overlook that, but explain the consequence of what he did. But if he lies about it, I'm going to deal with him.
Okay.
Because once he grows with that lie, integrity is lost. There is nothing. Without integrity, common good leadership, everything is lost. You will see that the person will be cutting corners all through his life. That is where the country has gotten to.
Okay, Doc, we want to talk about, please don't forget that you can be part of this conversation by calling us on our line 081-822-22205, or you can check us on YouTube by typing We Time with Ekene Ezepwe, and you'll watch us live. All right. We're still discussing with Dr. Lome, for a social psychologist, and there's no other person that can address this particular menace bedeviling our Nigerian child in recent times and this man at the moment. We are still discussing about the Nigerian, the decay in the Nigerian child in recent times with Dr. Lome. We want to go down to these peers. You talked about peers, peer pressures and all that. And a lot of people have actually, tried to withdraw their children from social gatherings and all that. Or you just start going to the mosque, start going to the churches. This is where you hear the word of God and all that. But in recent times, a lot of things are going wrong in the mosque and in the church. So where would they now make the best friends that can, make them to sharpen their...
Like I said, that we choose our friends. Our friends don't choose us. And that is very fundamental. When a child is lacking in self-confidence, self-worth, when a child is lacking in fundamental ego, and you see that the child is easily swayed because the child is not sure of certain things. And that is why I keep saying that the family is the foundation.